Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's live. Excited. I just always get so excited for our live streams every week. So, yeah, if you have any questions, throw them in the YouTube live chat or the live chat on Twitter. And yeah, we're going to dive into a bunch of stuff today. We've got obviously chapter 2 we can talk about, some task board updates that we'll dive into as well. And yeah, let's keep it farmer friendly and we'll have a good time. And some people are saying let the popcorn fly. It is, if you're not seeing it in game in the theater, make sure you hit refresh, try another world maybe. But yeah, it's on. And let's bring up Luke.
Hey everybody, no, excited to chat today. So yeah, we have a lot to go over. So I think we're getting a lot of questions today. There's like different market sentiment that's happening right now. And we were actually getting ready to like write a whole long article on the state of pixels to kind of explain to you guys, what the vision is, remind you guys like what our goals are, all of that. But I think maybe today in the same way, I'll kind of also go over just like kind of walk you guys through what the plan is, what we've been working on, and like what exactly we're trying to achieve here at Pixels. So at Pixels, we're trying to make play to earn work. That's the one goal that we have. And we're still innovating and trying to make sure that we get the fundamentals right around play to earn. We think that play to earn offers one of the biggest opportunities, not just in gaming, but in the way that user acquisition works in general. And it's super exciting. We've literally never been closer to achieving our goals of making play to earn work than now. And we talk in these AMAs a lot about the fundamentals. Essentially, for us, when we think about play to earn and the things that we need to work towards to make it work, we have one goal. We have net ecosystem spend in mind. Essentially, what we want to be working towards is we want more people to be spending the token inside of the game than we give out every single month. It's been the plan. It's been our thing that we've been working on, and there's steps to get there. So we're in an experimental phase right now, but we'll kind of outline, we've kind of broke it down into 3 phases of what we think our plan is for growth. There's phase 1, which we've been kind of calling game systems and game feel. There's phase 2, which is monetization and optimization. Then there's phase 3, that's the scaling phase. Right now, we're still in phase 1. So phase 1, how we kind of approach it is, and what we're thinking about is we still need the game to feel good and we need to make it feel right. So we released chapter 2. Chapter 2 is one of our first big system changes that we've done in a while. The reason why we released chapter 2 was because chapter 1 had some core issues with the gameplay that we knew that we needed to change, that if we didn't change, we'd be going down a very unsustainable route. A lot of the gameplay wasn't fun. It wasn't what it needed to be to get to the next level, and it didn't have a sense of regression that chapter 2 brings. Chapter 2, it's not the perfect release so far, but what we're working on basically is we're working on making it so that chapter 2 plays and feels really good, and there's still a bit of iterating, experimenting that we need to do there. When we first released chapter 2, there were some things that went really well about it, and then there were some things that didn't go so well, right? Some of the goals that we had set out with chapter 2 was we want to make sure that the game feels good, the earnings feel good, and that the game feels balanced. When we first released chapter 2, some of the system changes were really good changes, but then the earnings didn't feel nearly as good as they should have. We've been making some changes and tweaking, and there have been some times where we've fallen flat on how we want to release some things. Like we released some taskboard changes like a couple times in a row, and it wasn't quite received in the way that we wanted to. Like we weren't getting the right intended outcome. I think on Monday is when we finally released a taskboard change where we felt that it maybe made it feel a little bit better with our intended outcome, but there's still a lot of work to tweak here. So essentially how it's going to go for Pixels is for the next month, we have about like 3 or 4 different things we're focused on. It's gameplay. We need to make sure that the game feels good, that we're basically fixing all the balance issues, the mistakes that we're making there, and that we're able to iterate and update that quickly. We need to make sure that the rewards feel good. We need to make sure that you guys feel like the reward structure we've created feels fair, that there's progression to the rewards, and that there's a good sense of progression inside of that. The key outcome that we were trying to achieve with chapter 2 is we want to make it so that higher level players got more pixel tokens. And that's one big change you guys actually might be seeing if you're an early and new player inside of the game now. So it is intentional. If you're early inside of the game, you're not going to be able to earn as many of the pixel tokens as you did before. And you're actually also seeing that people that are way further through the game who have progressed further, their earnings are actually really high in the game now. We've been able to keep earnings constant. So if you see people that are earning really high amounts of pixel inside of the game, don't freak out, because we're actually giving out less pixels than we were last week, this week. And we've been able to do a better job of targeting the rewards to the right users. And that's a lot of the next stage of what we'll be working on at phase 2. So again, there's 3 phases to the plan here at Pixels. Phase 1 is we have to make sure the game feels good, it plays good, and that it feels right to all of you guys. We're basically looking at like a couple of metrics as we do this. We're looking at things like engagement, retention by cohort, like all the traditional metrics that you look at inside of a Web2 game. We're looking for at our game to judge its success, right? Now, next phase, we're getting these questions a lot. And it's interesting because we've talked about this a lot. Like we have been having conversations with the community that we're going to start introducing more ways to use the pixel token inside of the game for a little bit now. We're just about to turn that corner. We had to take like a little pause this week to make sure that the task board felt good so that we, maintain your user trust, that we maintain like all the experience that we can run. But now we're about to start to introduce new forms of monetization inside of the game. That's been one of the key focuses of Pixels. And we've been adding talent around there. So we just brought on a new head of monetization, or somebody who's going to like help us monetize some of the game mechanics and components. And what you're going to start to see is a shift in like some of the gameplay for that reason too. So it might require like a few systems changes, like a few new redesigns. But again, we have one goal at Pixels. It's that net ecosystem goal. And that's a lot of what phase 2 will involve. So phase 2, we call it the monetization optimization phase. Pixels, let's like take one step back for a minute and like all appreciate together like how far Pixels has come in 1 year. 1 year ago, Pixels was a completely different game with a completely different community with a lot different traction, right? It's interesting that I'm seeing so many people that are like a little nervous about the state of things right now. And I understand at some point, but also we have a user base of like hundreds of thousands of users with a game that we haven't really optimized for monetization or for like sustainability yet. And once we start to add in some of these components, we sorry, I'm speaking a little fast. Start to add in some of these components around like monetization and gameplay, we're in a really strong position. So where we're at right now with the economics of Pixels is we still give out more tokens every single month than we take in. So the token is in like a semi-inflationary state. But I will say, if you look at our token compared to other comparable gaming tokens, our inflation is much less. Right now, we give out about like 15 million tokens a month, and we burn about like 5 million through like some of the in-game mechanics, and then we lock up about like another million a month through some of the guild mechanics as well too. So that's a deficit about 9 million pixel tokens. But what that means is we really only need to double our revenue, or like 2.5x revenue, and then we hit what I believe to be the most important milestone for any team inside of Web3 gaming that nobody has achieved yet. It's the milestone of net ecosystem spend. So Web3 gaming is still in a very new space, right? Nobody's actually figured out the fundamentals of Web3 gaming yet. And that's the mission that we're on. A year ago, when you talk to people about Web3 gaming, or 2 years ago, a lot of people never thought play to earn could work. They thought you could never make an audience who is like earn motivated have any like desire to spend inside of the game. They say that like people from the Southeast Asian regions don't spend, and Pixel so far has proven all those things false. We have a lot of users that actually like to spend inside of the game, and our focus in the long run when it comes to like the fundamentals of Web3 gaming is we want to build out an ecosystem where not everybody has to spend. If you've ever played any Web2 game, Web2 games do perfectly fine with only having about like 3 to 5% of the user base actually spend inside of the game. And that's how we kind of view the play to earn model working as well in the long run. What we think about when we think about monetization is we think more about our play to earn rewards as our user acquisition budget. We think about basically creating a system where instead of running money on ads, you instead use that budget that you would use on ads and give it to your players directly. And now we're working on like all the depth and the nuance and the hard stuff that goes with that. But yeah, basically the key point here is we brought on a head of monetization. We're about to start to introduce new monetization rails. This is like the second phase of development that we're basically just about to start working on. And I personally feel like we're in a very good spot when it comes to user retention, engagement, all the metrics that you would typically see in like a Web2 game. We just need a little bit of time to actually implement them now. Pixels is in a funny spot because we have a really young, hungry, dedicated team, and now we're finally bringing on the talent of the Web2 people, with like large caveats. That will come and help us basically take the game and the company to the next level when it comes to all of this stuff. But yeah, I just want to assure everybody, like we're pretty relentless on figuring out the fundamentals. Like the fundamentals is the most important thing to us when we think about the longevity of pixels. And yeah, I personally wouldn't want to be working on anything that I didn't think would be able to work. So for the next like couple of months after we get the player feeling right with the core game loops, the core systems, and all of this, that's kind of the next focus in our team. We basically want to increase revenue month by month with this milestone of key net ecosystem spend. So once we get there, like what we're trying to figure out basically is like this equation. If you know games or if you know the gaming industry, we want to get to what we call like positive CAC to LTV, positive customer acquisition cost to lifetime value of a user. But basically, that's the equation that like Web2 games are thinking about when they think about, is this game going to work and be viable? And are we going to be able to take it to the mass market? Now, my thought process is I think we're like maybe like 4 months off from getting to this net ecosystem spend stuff. It depends on like what we do, how we experiment, and how quickly we're able to iterate. And it also depends on like a little bit of targeting rewards too. But once we get to that point, then that's when we start to get into like the scaling phase. The net ecosystem spend milestone is very interesting because that means you're technically profitable inside of the ecosystem. That means you can start to recirculate some of the like tokens that are getting spent inside of the game into more and more user acquisition. So I know you guys have been begging for more ways to spend the token. Believe me, this is all part of the plan and the process. Like this is literally the plan that we set out 6 months ago, and nothing's changed about it. Like we're not adjusting things because we're like nervous or because we see like a market shift or a sentiment. Like this has literally been the plan the entire time. Basically, the plan has been make a game, make sure it plays and feels good, get it ready when it comes to the systems in order to be able to monetize it, because you don't want to build out monetization rails in a game system that doesn't work, because you'll have to go back to the drawing board if you need to rechange the system. So the systems we feel like are in a much better spot and need tweaking for about the next month. And then the next phase is all about revenue basically for the team, or for the ecosystem. Like when we think about revenue inside of Pixels, like the business model is we raise venture capital, right? The Pixels team doesn't need to worry about runway. The Pixels team has one mission of essentially helping expand Web3 as large as possible. And we can help do that by essentially making the pixel token as useful as possible and having the token used inside of the game as much as possible. So we can basically focus all of what we traditionally would have focused on, like team revenue, into ecosystem and token revenue. So basically, any monetization we're going to be adding is all going to be focused on like using the token, and it's going to be going into the community treasury, taken out of circulation effectively. So yeah, there's a lot that we're working on there. And yeah, don't freak out or don't worry too much about it. Like literally, we've never been closer to achieving the goals that we're trying to achieve. I keep saying this, but like the deficit for us to hit that ecosystem spend feels extremely realistic to hit in the next like 4 to 6 months. And if we hit that, we'll really be the first team to actually figure out what I believe are the fundamentals of Web3 gaming. So this is bigger than just like the current moment. And you get to be along for the ride too. Like honestly, you can kind of consider like this time period like a play the airdrop campaign if you really want, because things will change a little bit when we actually hit that milestone. That's when we can start to expand into other markets in that phase 3 part of things. We can start to build a presence in like probably US and APAC markets is probably going to be the idea. And then that's when we'll start to shift to this other really interesting thing that we've been working on too. So in all of this, like the other tech that we've been building out, when we think about monetization and ecosystem sustainability, there's two parts of the equation. The first part is, you need to make a game that people want to be spending in the game on, right? You need to make an experience that people want to be using the token in, and you need to be having like a fun game. The other part of the equation is like you need to make sure that you really know who to give tokens to. And right now we started a new progression based system to give out tokens inside of the game, right? That was the whole point of chapter 2 in the early stages. We want to make it so that players who are further through the game, through some of the metrics that we have on you, like your total levels or your levels in particular skills, would increase the earnings inside of the game. Well, we're going to start to do a shift around two. This will probably be like 2 to 3 months away, maybe a little bit less, to be honest, as we're going to start shifting to like a bit of a predictive model too. So one of the unique spots of Pixels right now is Pixels is the largest Web3 game by real DAU, and by spend, we're doing quite well too. When it comes to monetization, we've averaged over $2.5 million a month of revenue since we released the Pixel token, and this is all accruing to the community treasury. And with that, we have one of the best data sets in the world on what happens when you give out a reward to a user and what do they do with it? Do they withdraw it and sell it immediately? Do they spend it inside of the game? Do they mint a pet? We have all of this data. And what we're about to start to do is going to start to take insights on this data and actually turn the task board into like a predictive system. So if it makes sense, this is like kind of technical and high level. And I think sometimes it's cool to share this because I think you guys care. We're getting a lot of questions about the fundamentals. That's why I want to set some time aside in CMA for this. Once we start to shift towards that, what that means is the task board will get a lot more dynamic and a lot smarter. What we'll actually probably start to do is we'll probably start to give more of the pixel tokens to users who we think are actually going to start using it in the game for some of that fun stuff, for pets, for guilds, for like anything else too. So it's going to be a shift when we hit that. But it's gonna be a pretty fun thing too. So I think that's like the key thing I want to bring up. Basically, Pixels, we're still in like a very experimental and iterative stage. Like we really appreciate all of you who have been sticking with us for the last week or two as we've had a few bumps in making sure that the game feels good to you guys. Making sure the game plays and feels good to you guys is the number one priority in the short term. What we need to make sure is that we feel like you guys are listening to it, or we need you guys to feel like we are listening to you. We need to make updates based on the feedback that you give. We need to make sure that the task board feels really nice and smooth to you. We need to make sure that the task board feels fair. And then once we have that, we're going to start shifting focus towards adding new ways to use the token. And using the new ways to use the token, it's not just going to be like we have the same game out and now we have to charge you for the same stuff that you were doing before. What it means is we're going to be releasing new types of gameplay that use the token. So don't get too freaked out about it either. Like what we're not trying to shift towards is we're not trying to make it so that like we just extract as much of like value out of you guys as possible. What we're trying to do next is we're trying to create new interesting types of gameplay where we've been giving you the token for a long time. And yeah, you might be able to use the token for things like quality of life updates, for like new gameplay systems, for like all of this kind of stuff too. So again, fundamentals are literally the only thing I care about at Pixels. I don't care about the vanity metrics. Like if you noticed, we removed like a good amount of bots from the ecosystem, and like the DAU is a bit lower, but our ARPU, or like our average revenue per user, is much higher now. And our real DAU to bot ratio is much higher too. Like we care about the real numbers. We care about making something actually work. And I have no problem changing things if like they don't work. So for us to have success over the next year, the net ecosystem spend, or like basically making it so that people use more of the tokens inside of the game than we give out, is the most important focus for us. So again, if you ever have questions about the fundamentals, we're about to do a really long write-up on this. I think I'll probably get the write-up out tomorrow. It'll be long form written. It'll kind of go through like the state of everything. What our metrics are looking like, how much XP has been gained in the game, how much pixels have been spent in the game over the last month, 3 months, all of this kind of stuff. We'll give you the game plan on like how we plan on um, yeah, sorry, I'm speaking fast. It's also I'm transparently, I'm in Japan. So if you're a part of like the Japanese Pixel or Ronin community, there's going to be a Ronin meetup, which I'll be at pretty soon at IVS in Kyoto. So yeah, stop by that one. But it's 4:22 a.m. also. So if I look a little lost and confused and I'm not making as much sense, that's why. But we have to show up to the AMAs. We have to do it.
We have to show up.
Um,
Yeah. I know
yeah.
a lot of you guys have been commenting that I look like sad and tired and whatnot. I'm not. I actually just have like a really bad earache. So it's kind of hard for me to like listen and focus. So we're both here, regardless of our situations, because we love you guys and we never miss our AMAs. So let's go. Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to speak to before we dive into questions?
No, I think there's a lot. But yeah, there's a lot to there's a lot to dig into here. Like again, our only focus is on the fundamentals. We are actually pretty close to pulling off what we want to pull off. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it's your choice if you want to stay in the ecosystem or not. Um, if you believe in Web3 gaming, if you truly think Web3 gaming is inevitable, I think we're pretty close to cracking the code, to be honest. I've never felt like we've been closer. Like if you were talking to me a year ago, like, do we think we can make our game work in general? Like I didn't even feel good about our game, to be honest. And now I feel like we're in the best spot that we've ever been when it comes to like getting to the next stage and getting to the next level. Like we have a legitimate chance to build not only a Web3 game that works, but one that takes a ton of market share away from Web2 games. Um, yeah, it's interesting because like sometimes the sentiment of some of this stuff is like a little out of our hands and just driven by market, and stuff that's like not completely in our control. But what I can say is like the stuff that's in our control, like I feel pretty good about it. There's a lot of work that we need to do. It's not going to come easy. It's not an easy road in front of us. But it's also a pretty exciting time. Like we have a ton of people that we've been interviewing to come onto the Pixels team lately. And the level of talent that we're getting here that's interested is like amazing, to be honest. Like people on the outside in Web 2 see what we're up to finally, and they want a part of this now. It's been really cool. If I was interviewing people a year ago, it was impossible to get the talent that we wanted. But now, yeah, we feel like we're like very well positioned, to be honest. It's an exciting time internally. So I want to share that excitement with you guys because we're getting there. We made actual progress towards making play to earn work. And if we pull this off, then not just like us will be working, but like there's gonna be a lot of other play to earn games in the space that will also work too. So it's good for everybody. Like we should all want to see each other win, right?
They're begging you to speak Japanese. Do you know any?
I know nothing.
Okay, I've pulled aside a few questions here, and yeah, if you guys have any other questions, make sure you're adding them in the YouTube live chat or the Twitter live chat, not the comments, the live chat. So yeah,
Someone said, yeah, so here's like an insight. So chapter 1 and chapter 2, we're giving out the same amount of pixel now. And what we've gotten better with in chapter 2 is you're seeing some people are posting, oh, I got like 300 pixel today. We've done a much better job at in chapter 2, believe it or not, because I know I saw some images that like maybe shifted the sentiment to think otherwise, but we do have like a decent grasp on like the problems now. There's a lot less pixel going to bots in chapter 2 than chapter 1, like a lot less, and a lot more pixel going to real users. And let me see if I can pull this chart. Actually, I think this is a good one to share. We wanted to get like a better one that was easier to understand, because sometimes I feel like I share charts and it's like not the easiest chart to look at and understand. But I can show you the distribution of tokens. Here, let me see if I can pull this up, and let me double check this is the right image too. So there's still a lot of tweaking that we're going to need to do here in this image, and let me see if this makes sense. But you can see the token distribution here. So our goal with chapter 2 was to make it so that higher level players got more pixel, and you can see the distribution here. There's a lot of tweaking here. So like these numbers here are not final by any means. But what you can see here, these are like histograms on earnings inside of the game. And you can see it's ranked by total levels. So you can see the 0 to 50. Like if you're level 0 to 50, you're really not earning much inside of the game. The median earnings are like very, very low here. Same thing with like 50 to 100. You can see as you start to get further through the game, the earnings and the median earnings, that's this bar right here, increase pretty significantly. And the level 500 to 50s, like they're earning a decent amount of pixel every single day. It's kind of nuts. But then here, this chart, you can see the total amount of pixel that we're giving out each day. So right now, most of the user base, if you look at it, this is the player count. Most of the user base is in these two buckets, like 0 to 50 and 50 to 100. And if you get further down, these are the number of users here that are of these levels, and these are the earnings here. So you can see that like giving out this much pixel to the level 500 to 550, this is the total pixel compared to like the other ones, right? It's not very much. Like it's like the best marketing thing that we can do to give out a lot of earnings towards the higher end players, because it doesn't have that much impact. Like what we do need to figure out is like the earnings in this area, because these are the ones that are most usable, like the early levels. What you'll actually probably see us doing over the next little bit is we'll probably shift some of these earnings a bit more this way too. So we'll probably like chop off the earnings in level 50, 100 and like move them more this way. We like that exaggeration right now of like higher level means more earnings inside of the game. We'll also start to do some experiments too. One thing that we haven't done in a while when it comes to earnings is, and I think we're about to start to introduce this because there's a good mix of the two, is we'll also probably start to introduce the rewards dashboard earnings again too. So if you guys haven't checked this in a while, some of you don't even know this is in the game. If you go to the dashboard, you get a daily login bonus of 100 coins. Now we can do some other interesting stuff in this area too, around like some of the earnings as well. Like we can probably introduce like a daily login, all of this kind of stuff. The whole point of the earnings and what we're trying to figure out here is, again, we're building a great data set on monetization prediction. We're building a user acquisition method that's extremely competitive against Web 2 gaming. Like the earnings are good. They're good for the ecosystem if we can figure out how to do it the right way. So we don't want to, ease on this because it's giving us a great data set and some of the most valuable data inside of Web3, to be honest. Like nobody else in Web3 gaming has anything like this. They don't have the users and the history and the first party data that we have. Like this is some good stuff to be getting. So yeah, that's what we're thinking about with rewards. But again, like high level rewards, if you're high level, like it's great marketing for us. It's very little in the marketing budget. We do want the highest levels to be earning a lot of pixel.
Yeah, and there's just one other point that I wanted to throw in there. And that is someone pointed out, so total levels do matter. So I just want to say that that chart that we were looking at is a very simplistic model of the reward system because it's really easy to digest for all of you and even us internally. The algorithm is more complicated than simply looking at highest or the amount of levels you have. So if you're at like 300, you're never going to, sorry, I'm out to lunch right now. But if you're at like 100 farming level or something crazy like that, 0 across the other ones, like we're paying attention to these sorts of things. So it's not that simple of a model. It's just like kind of easy to understand and digest.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that was just like a metric to show like the general trend. Like the algorithm is a lot different than that, to be honest. And there's like more complexities in there than that. But like the general feeling that we want users to have is if you have a higher level, you're going to start earning more inside of the game. Now, there's still some tweaks that we need to do there to make it feel right. And there's some things that don't feel right too. Like one example that we're needing to fix right now, we have the task board earnings feeling better. There's still game economy issues right now that are affecting some of the game play, especially around land. Like land gameplay is like where we're missing right now. But we had to fix the task board first in terms of the earnings to move on to that part. The tier 3 and the tier 4 items are a little mispriced right now. There's a few things there that we're thinking about doing. Like one, we need to maybe do a bit more dynamic pricing with the rewards inside of the task board for some of these tier 3 and the tier 4 items to make sure that the demand is there for them. Two, we need to probably give more tasks to more users on the tier 3 to tier 4 items. Doesn't necessarily need to be pixel tasks, but we need to figure out how to create more demand from it. The task board's a really interesting system because we can basically do like a bit of economy manipulation with the task board and do like buybacks of items. That's effectively what a pixel task is. A pixel task is a buyback of items inside of the economy with the pixel token. So we probably need to do a bit more with the tier 3 and the tier 4. We already know we need to do like some adjustments to the tier 3 and the tier 4 resources because the intended outcome there, like what we wanted was we wanted the tier 3 and the tier 4 resources to be much more in demand and desirable so that players had to have a lot more of their gameplay based on land. We're not achieving that goal right now. So the team is working on that. Had to get the task board ready first. Then we have to get the economics and the balance feeling right. Then we have to get some of the gameplay feeling right. And then we can start to add the quality of life improvements, the monetization stuff, the new game systems, all of that. So it's like a 2 to 3 month process to get like some of the stuff out. But I think we'll probably get some of the first monetization things out in the next like couple weeks. And we'll see what that does. We're pretty excited. The other thing when it comes to monetization too, we haven't talked about this or touched on this. Monetization inside of Web 2 games, it's multifaceted. So there's normally like 3 to 5 different revenue streams that Web 2 games typically implement. And we're probably going to start implementing a couple things too. So one thing we didn't talk about when we talked about monetization, the ecosystem revenue, was ads. That's actually something that's like pretty viable for us, and we have to figure out how we want to go about this. We will probably bring on another person to lead this in the long run, but I think we can get something out in the short run. Running ads inside of the game and figuring out like ad placements that might make sense. I think. Let me know your feedback on this. Would you guys be okay with watching an ad inside of the game if you're on the free to play side, if you don't have VIP? I personally think it's kind of fair if you're earning Pixel to watch an ad every now and then, but they would be optional. Like we would probably do an ad if you need more energy or if you need like some kind of premium feature, but like there's stuff like that that we'll start to introduce as well too as we move on to the next stage as well.
I watch
So
so many ads in mini games.
yeah, yeah.
For like the
Or if you
little
have VIP, maybe
boosters
you don't
and
need to watch
stuff.
ads. Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
things like that that we'll start to introduce as well. So I mean, yeah, believe me, we're thinking about it. It's top of mind. It's like literally all I think about every single day. How do I increase ecosystem revenue? How do I increase ecosystem revenue? um, and yeah, it's a bit harder than you would think initially. Like what we want to do is we want to get the right people on the team to make sure that we have it. Now we have some of them, so we can start focusing and expanding on this. And the team is basically ready to go on all this kind of stuff.
Everyone is saying, yes, do it. Ads, do it. Yes. All right, cool.
No, that's what's the crazy thing about Web3, right? Like we can literally have an open conversation with the user base
I love
and the
it.
player
It's
base
so
about,
great.
hey, we gotta monetize. Like, how do we do this? And the fact that you guys are begging for ads is really weird, to be honest. Like most gamers don't do that. But I mean, it's because there's like aligned incentives. It's because you guys want to see this work, and it's always really appreciated. So yeah, we're working on it.
Okay. Honest review on Beanie.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been listening to Beanie as much. So me and Heidi like did a deep dive into like Filipino music the other day, or P-pop.
P-pop is
um,
not even a thing.
yeah, yeah, it's P-pop.
Is it actually called P-pop?
Yeah, right.
I don't know, guys. Someone tell us. Although it's the middle of the
It's
night.
P-pop. It's P-pop.
P-pop, okay.
But yeah, I like Hev Abi. I have been listening to Hev Abi since we did that deep dive. Um,
Amazing.
yeah. Also, like, why are people in the Philippines up right now?
Yeah, I don't know.
You guys are
They don't
you
sleep.
should be asleep. It's like 4 a.m., isn't it?
All right. It's a good question. When Pixels Layer 2 on Ronin?
Yeah, so I actually just talked to the team about that. Some Ronin team members are in Japan also, and they'll be at the meetup. And yeah, I think it's actually closer than we thought, to be honest. Or at least like we can start to get some more experiments done quicker. So one of the things that we are kind of sad about is um, that there's a lot of people minting collections for pixels, and they're doing it on like Polygon or something like that. Like new collections inside of our game, like if we can get them on a pixels chain or like on Ronin as quick as possible, like we want to accelerate that. Also, it'd be way cooler if like you have a collection that you're doing for pixels. If you minted in the pixel token, that'd be like, yeah, that's, you should be doing that. So yeah, we'll be talking about that. But yeah, the layer two, like they want to go live with like the ZK EVMs in like early 2025, but they might give us access to like some earlier stuff sooner. I like the idea of it. I actually think it helps monetize a little bit too. Like if we can start to use some of the stuff using the pixel token, or like having some more stuff on chain, then yeah, it's like a pretty solid win for us. Like we would move a lot more on chain if we could. Like for example, the marketplace in game right now, this is a cool stat, has about $6 million of volume in it every single month, and it's not reflected on chain. And I think there would probably be more marketplace volume and more market making happening if it was on chain too. So we'd get a lot of advantages out of that. So yeah, we should do it as soon as we can, I think.
Okay. A lot of questions about the new reputation quest that we've been talking about. So our plan was to release it this week, but transparently, we've been working really, really hard on the taskboard updates. So it might take a little bit longer, but it is definitely something that's going to be coming really, really soon. So just hang tight.
I like this question. What do you think about adding a marriage system for spec access? I've really been wanting to do a marriage system. I don't think I've told anyone in the team. I have like a side mission that I started doing around like NPC characters. I think we're gonna like do a little experiment around like UGC NPCs and like do like a little side thing and see if it like gets some interest from you guys. But let me know your feedback. Would you be interested in maybe having like an NPC that you could create in Pixels that was like a little AI companion? Um, if I don't know if you've ever used the thing character AI, but that's where we'd be getting a lot of inspiration from. And then like having some kind of marketplace or like ownership aspect with it, where you like create an NPC, use it in game. It's like a pretty easy lift for us to integrate it in technically. And then we were like contracting somebody else out to like do some of the AI stuff. It's just like a little side thing that might be cool. If you guys think it's cool, then let us know. But if not, if you think it's a dumb idea, then maybe I can kill it now.
Someone was like, "No, I divorce." Okay, you don't have to do it. Like, okay, cool. Getting okay. Let's just talk about it. So a lot of you guys are talking a lot about cooking. There's too many
Oh yeah,
cooking.
this one. I think this is
There you go. Too many cooking tasks. Yes, we are aware. And
well,
it's part of the task board rebalancing and work that we're diving into. This is one of the points that is being looked into. And the reason is that there are just so many different types of cooking tasks available versus other industries. And if you've leveled up your cooking really, really high in the existing system, at least how it's working now, we see that and we're like, oh, we'll give you more cooking tasks. So we hear you. Changes are coming.
yeah. Also, how the task board works right now, just so you know, is if you leveled up your cooking higher, you're going to get more cooking tasks. So you kind of did
Yeah.
it to yourself in a way. So if you want to see if you want to see less cooking tasks, go level up your other levels too, and you'll start to see more of like the mining task if you level up your mining. But if you're a really high level in cooking, we kind of thought it's because you liked cooking. So we're like, oh, this person likes cooking, we'll give them more cooking tasks. But I guess not.
Okay. Let's see some other questions we have in here. Some people asking about guilds updates. So yeah, this is something that's in development right now. So it's still several weeks out, but we've been working a lot on it, building out the different features and whatnot. I also was just having a conversation about maybe a live ops event that we can possibly include some guild stuff. And so we'll see. There's lots of ideas around that kind of side, but the actual mechanics themselves are in development. And yeah, so a few weeks out still, but stay tuned. I'm excited for it. Another question, similar. When new pets? So that's another thing is also in development.
Yeah.
We haven't chosen which pet yet, though. So I know I say this like literally every AMA, but what pet do you guys want? Let us know. There's a bunch. You can see them if you go to the Mavis Marketplace page for Pixel Pets. The header has like a bunch of samples of a bunch of different types of pets. So you can go look at what's available up there.
Luke, you always talk about the Pixels economy, but I don't see anything that's sustainable for the project. 3-month VIP paying for yourself in 1 month, given that the game doesn't have a burning mechanism. So the sustainability that we're focused on right now is the core metrics of the gameplay, which is a little bit different, right? Like we haven't switched on to monetization optimization yet. And that's like the conversation I was trying to have with you guys, where there's like steps to it, right? You can't monetize a bad game that users don't feel like is nice and feels good, right? Like you have to have the game feel good and play good before you can move on to the monetization part. And we just released chapter 2, which are really big changes that we needed to do in order to set a better base for the game. But there's still going to be like a little bit of time, like probably like 2 to 4 weeks of like fixing things to make it feel better, because there's still some things that people are, if you just look at the comments here, they're like, there's still some things that people don't like still, right? Like people don't like the winery stuff or the cooking tasks. Um, People are like, why are these tier 4 tasks appearing for people that haven't unlocked tier 3? This is for a reason, I will say. But like there's some things that we need to make sure feel right to the users before we move on to the monetization, right? Like, do you guys like the game and you're feeling really happy about it, you're probably going to be more likely to use the token, right? And especially you have to consider that we're thinking about audiences beyond just you guys too. Like you guys are our guinea pigs. That's also why we're having the earnings high right now too, right? It's high for the like higher end players, but how our system works is as we get more players, the earnings per player decreases. This is kind of like these are good times right now. We're going to keep the earnings constant as we start to grow the game, right? So Like the amount of tokens going out into the ecosystem will be constant for the next year, 2 year, 5 years, right? Until we start getting more tokens spent that we can recirculate. But until we start getting like profitable in terms of the ecosystem, we won't increase tokens given out. So the more users that we start to get, the less earnings per player. So like take advantage of this now, right? Like tell your friends and stuff like that too to come in, because it's going to be different when we start going to like mass market, right? And then once we start adding in prediction, it's going to feel a little bit different too, right? Like one thing that we're going to start doing is like we're going to start getting a bit more dialed in on who's actually using the token. And like truthfully, we're going to start getting more of the tokens, the more the people who are using the token too. So that's going to be something that we look at. So just keep that in mind too. Again, you're allowed to do whatever you want. But as we like work towards sustainability, there's like some steps that we have to take too, right?
Okay, so when will UGC submission reopen? So once again, this was something we were hoping to get out this week, but due to capacity limited, because we're focusing heavily on task board, it's going to be a little bit longer. But hope their avatar close UGC submissions in the future. Yeah, so we're going to do some stuff around avatars and make them highly customizable. There's so many ideas of where we can go here. So I'm so excited about it. And I'm excited that you're kind of like thinking about it too. Another question we got is the winery permanent in how it is right now? No. Okay. So the winery industry is going to completely change in a couple weeks. So it's just going to be like have a whole other overhaul with all new wines or drinks or whatever it is. Okay. So we had to implement this change now because there was game breaking activity taking place, and that was the ability to create infinite energy. So we had to put some like extreme measures in place now just to limit this game breaking activities until we have the big overhaul of the industry in a couple of weeks. So it is not permanent. Things are absolutely going to change. Okay.
Landowners are sinking 300 to 500 pixels per day. Why do you think they're not dumping the price? Again, the amount of tokens that we give out in chapter 2 is the exact same as chapter 1. Now we're doing a better job of giving them to real players. So whatever they do with them is up to them. Like again, part of what we're going to start shifting the task board to, remember this, is like we're also going to start to see like what do these people do with the tokens? Because that's important, right? Like we want to give out tokens in the long run to people who are actually going to be using them inside of the game. So we're going to have a task board shift in like probably 2 months, and we'll see the reception on it with community sentiment. But I think it'll really help our metrics that we're working towards around prediction, right? So like what that means is we want to give out more tasks to people at different times of their play style and their user journey that we think will lead to them sticking into the ecosystem longer. So when you're monetizing a Web2 game, you think a lot about like a couple of metrics. You think about day 1 retention, day 7 retention, and day 28. Like when you get people to certain milestones inside of the game, it keeps them in the game for a lot longer. So like guiding somebody through the day 28 is a really important thing to keep them for a long time. So, getting them like the little carrot on the stick to like keep them in is really important. And then like understanding like what kind of player they might evolve into is really important too. So like we have data on these users where we can kind of start to also predict early on in their user journey for a new user what kind of user they're going to turn into. And what we want to do is we want to start to give more incentives in the early user journeys to users who are more likely to use the token or convert into a landowner or these kinds of things to keep them hooked into the game, right? So a lot of what we're doing now is the experiments that will help us figure out stuff for when we start to push more growth in like a month or it'll probably be like 2 to 4 months to be honest. But it's like really, really cool tech. Nobody else is building this out. I'm okay with saying that we're building this out. Like this is stuff that like I was thinking maybe we should keep in stealth, but I'm okay with telling people that we're building this because we have a data set that goes way further back with way more rewards with the first party data that nobody else has. We also have the know-how and the team and like the tenacity to build this quicker. This will be our biggest competitive advantage when we start to build this out. Like this is really cool, innovative stuff. And this is why like all these Web2 people want to work with us because of this stuff. It's cool. So again, it's intentional to be honest. Like we want to give players who are further through the game more pixel. We're giving out the same amount of pixel in chapter 2 as we did in chapter 1. Now we're better at giving it out, so you feel that a bit more, which is good.
Okay. So will withdraw continue to require 1,500 reputation points? So yeah, for now it will. And we're going to be monitoring this and just seeing how it plays out and what works. The reputation, I think it used to be 2,000 points to withdraw. And then when we released, I think it was when we released chapter 2, was it? Or maybe the airdrop. I can't remember exactly. We lowered it a lot. And it's we recently increased it right when the task board was having some unbalanced issues and whatnot. So we'll see. We're going to play it by ear, kind of pay attention to what makes sense and whatnot. Okay.
What's the use of putting chicken in the coops when there's no use to them at all? Yeah, so we're doing a rework of coops. Like coops will start to be tiered too. And if you have a coop trait on your land, that's the only way that you'll be able to get like a tier 3 or a tier 4 coop. Now, again, the tier 3 and the tier 4 isn't feeling right. We just fixed like that big task board thing that we were talking about where we want to make it so that higher levels earn more pixel. Now what we have to do for the balance is we have to go in and actually fix the task to make sure that all the tasks make sense because they don't all make sense yet. And like it's leading to issues in the tier 3 and the tier 4 part of the stack, right? Like the tier 3 and the tier 4 have less demand in some circumstances than the tier 1 and tier 2. This is partly because there's more tier 1 and 2 tier players, so they need these tasks more and they like need the resources more. So that's partly also why we've been putting more tier 3 and tier 4 tasks in the other players' task boards so that there's like a bit more user demand for them. But it's like a bit of tweaking that we have to do there. So yeah, coops are coming. There's gonna be a whole update around them. And yeah. Oh, that's a good question. What do you think about doing monthly or weekly regular events? So yeah, we're about to start doing more stuff there soon. I actually think the next event, what we're going to do is we're going to introduce the first contestable land where like a guild can go and compete for it. So essentially, it'll be something like if you've followed us along before, um, we've done like events like other spec, like tastemakers, like month-long events that go on. I think what we want to do is we want to do something like that again, except instead of an individual leaderboard, we want to do a guild leaderboard for something like this. And then the guild that wins will get the first tier 5 land.
Yeah, I actually just had like a 2.5 hour conversation yesterday about live ops events and all of these sorts of things and like what we can do and all of that. And exciting stuff is what I can say. There's going to be a lot of exciting stuff in the works and on the way.
So what's the point to keep grinding out if tier 3 and tier 4 items are mostly lost in the market? Yeah, so that's a game balance issue that we're working on fixing now. Like it shouldn't work like that. Like how we should balance the game is that tier 3 and tier 4 should be more valuable inside of the game. There's like it's wrong how it works right now is what I'll say. And the team is working on fixing it. We're gonna try to get it fixed out this week for that. And then it should make my thought process here is if we fix this, it'll make some of the landowner sentiment feel better because right now with tier 3 and tier 4 being less valuable, the land doesn't make a lot of sense. When there's more demand on that tier 3 and tier 4, I think it'll all come together a bit more. That's like the thought process. So like we have to figure out how to fix that. I think we have a few ideas there. So we'll try to release some stuff this week. Question, what is your response to those about circulating videos about multi-botting? Yeah, so chapter 2 wasn't initially perfect. We did see some people try to create some accounts in like the tier 1 tasks. One of the issues that we were having, like to be completely transparent, was, and you guys all know this, the task board was broken. It wasn't giving out rewards in the way that we expected it to. And essentially there was a bug in it where like some lower levels were getting more pixel than the higher levels. Really bad bug. And it was especially bad because a lot of it was given to people who just had farming levels up, which tended to be a lot of people who had bots written already. So once we cut that issue down, we saw like a big drop in, and then the 1500 reputation of VIP also cuts it back. The whole intention behind chapter 2 and like why we introduced progression is that we wanted more of the rewards and more of the earnings to be in tier 3 and tier 4. And it's really, I'm disappointed myself that the initial rollout of chapter 2 of the task board didn't achieve that right away. Like the first week of chapter 2, we failed there, which is sad, but it's also the reality. And we fixed it now where tier 3 and tier 4 give a lot more earnings if you're further through those levels. But the whole point of why we had done that initially was that you couldn't bot as easily. And then the first week, we had it so that it was very easy to bot it. So yeah, big mess up on the team there. But that's why we also locked the accounts to have 15 reputation or 1500 reputation. And then what we're doing too is we're doing like some retroactive sweeps. We made some pretty big progress in some of the bot detection and prevention. We'll also in the State of the Pixels Union or State of the Union, whatever I'm writing tomorrow, and we're about to like release tomorrow, we'll do a really long deep dive into this problem set. Um, I can confidently say that Pixels has done more for cyber prevention and detection than anybody else inside of Web3. We have been keeping a lot of our techniques secret because if we are very public about them, it makes it a bit easier to bot. Because it's a bit of a game of cat and mouse, right? Like you can't always tell them what you do because there's always like certain methods that you have, but there's also some insights that we have that we can share with the rest of the space because it's such a hard problem set that we probably should. So we want to see the space get better. We also want to inform you guys on what to look out for. What I can confidently say is if a team isn't talking about this, if they haven't like mentioned anything about what they're doing here, you can assume that that team has a lot of bots inside of their ecosystem. Um, yeah, so we'll give you the rundown of what we've been up to. But like basically our bot prevention detections setup, we do like a lot of fingerprinting. We fingerprint not just network, but like browser and hardware. We do like a lot of retroactive data science where we'll like look at different things about users, we'll cluster them together. We have a model now too. One interesting thing that we have that nobody else has inside of Web3 gaming right now is we have a list and data of like hundreds of thousands of users that we have flagged as bot and not bot, which actually makes it a lot easier for us to build predictive models on how to determine what a bot is and what isn't. So we have some tech there too. We have the reputation system that needs an overhaul. Once we've kind of fixed reputation, that should be a bit better. We'll start to do with reputations. We'll also start to look at your on-chain data. Like if you have NFTs, if you have like ETH in your wallet, things like that. We don't take that into account right now, but that should help a lot. And then other thing that we've done is like these system changes inside of chapter 2, which should help further too. But yeah, I mean, again, a lot of the reason that you guys are earning so much more pixel is because less bots are getting pixel.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that a lot of the people that are hanging out in our Discord sharing their stats and whatnot, if they're getting a lot, it's because they're big users, right? They're the people that are super invested in like having fun in the community and all of that. So it was interesting after we pushed these updates that seemed to be, making a big difference and making sure that our higher level players are getting some. I was getting so many like cynical responses like, now there's too much, and it's like no, you guys are just all high level players.
Yeah, that's what was supposed to happen like at the very beginning. Like, dude, I'm a little sad about it. Like that was supposed to be the big marketing of chapter 2 that we kind of messed up on, where like we were supposed to release chapter 2. You guys were supposed to earn so much more at the very beginning. And now we have to like earn your trust again, which we'll do it. We're showing up every single week. I'm not sleeping. Like we're working really hard to make sure that we get your trust back. It's yeah, unfortunate that we didn't get it like perfectly lined up with all of the chapter 2 release, and we've like had a lot of internal talks about how we can make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen again. And yeah, it's a lot of like the priority too. That's also like part of the interesting part about scaling up. Like we're bringing on new people from Web 2 into the Pixels team. That's good. Like having people with experience is good. But also one thing that we need to realize too on our team is like you can't always just completely listen to the Web 2 people, right? Like Web 2 games, they kind of suck right now, right? Um, like the state of the space inside of Web 2 is like it's very set in its ways. And just like following people who have built the status quo completely is not good. What we're trying to do is us as a team, we're trying to disrupt Web 2 because we think there's a lot of issues with it inside of Web 2 gaming. So we need people who have been on the inside, right? But we also need to like tell them how it works inside of Web3 because they don't know. They have no idea. So that's the kind of person we've been looking for in the team lately. It's like you gotta come in with like a ton of experience. Like we are only having people that are like senior director level, and like we're bringing them in and we're telling them, hey, I know you ran a 50-person, 100-person team, but you're going to be an individual contributor here if you come and join the team. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to grind. And you also have to like take our advice. I know it's like crazy for us to say that because we're like we don't have the Web 2 experience you have. Like, you've done some great things, but we kind of know some of the Web 3 side of things too. So that's the company building part that we've been trying to figure out. Like, how do we get in the great talent while still getting that like Web 3 like community oriented mindset in their minds too? It's like a push and pull.
Come on, 1 hour live isn't enough.
Mhm.
So last week we did was it that last week? I actually can't keep track of time anymore, but Luke and I did like a few lives where we just like hung out on live stream and played Pixels. So I'm definitely gonna do that more. I will say I will wait until my ear infection is cleared before I do that. But yes, that is so much fun. We loved hanging out with you guys. So we'll do those once in a while. It'll be fun.
They can add a burning of pixels, some loot boxes. So what I
Ooh.
will say is we actually have a bunch of systems for monetization already built. What we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we were going to do them right. So we kind of were holding them off until we had somebody who's built a loot box system before or like done
Okay,
this.
but if you've been around in Pixels for a while, we've done some version of loot boxes in the past. The new mechanic that they've built for loot boxes is so much more fun, and like just like the user experience is so much more fun. I'm not gonna leak how it works yet, but it's just like just that feeling. You guys keep up asking for those quality of life updates, and those are simple as like when I level up, I want an interaction, I want confetti, I want something, this gives that, and I love it so much.
Yeah, so we will have some stuff coming like that soon. Like we have it already built. We just need to we just need to like do some tweaks with like this actual content inside the boxes to make sure it feels right and make sure it doesn't like disrupt the game. So like part of the experience that is very valuable for bringing on stuff like this is like if we were to do this ourselves, like we don't know what we're doing when it comes to monetization core team, to be honest. Like we had to bring on somebody to like help us with this to like make sure we actually do it right. If we did it without knowing what we were doing, like we would probably do something that makes it like either cannibalize parts of the game or like feel unfair. Like a lot of the experience that these web 2 people can bring is like honestly partly the player feel, like making sure that it doesn't take away from other parts of the game or feel unfair or to pay to win. Otherwise we would probably mess it up. So yeah, we're bringing in some of that stuff.
Okay, well, we are hitting the 1 hour mark, so appreciate your words here. We try to be as transparent as we can. But anyways, is there any last thoughts, comments?
Oh, yeah. So this is like an interesting mechanic that we started introducing. And I think we actually might do this more. So in the task board, we want to add like a bit more RNG. Like if you guys don't like it, let us know. Some people don't like it. But like we added a new case of or a new class of tasks called chase tasks. And essentially what they are is like there's only a few, like maybe 100 or like 200 given on a day. I'll double check on the frequency, but it's not many. But like you might have a chance of like getting a jackpot of a pixel task, basically like 40, 50. Like we might even make them bigger because it's just kind of fun, right? Like knowing that you might be able to get something like that. So yeah, these higher pixel tasks are true.
Super,
And they're
super
very
rare.
rare. They're
Yeah.
very rare
Okay, cool. Any final words, thoughts?
though. Thanks. We appreciate nice comments, to be
We
honest.
do.
We've read a lot of mean comments the last couple of weeks, and they're getting a lot nicer, is what I'll say. Which means that like we're gaining some of your trust back. And we know we did not come in the way that we should have in chapter two. And yeah, we appreciate like the patience with all of this. Like we messed up a little bit and we got to like a danger zone, I would say, when it came to community sentiment. That was the worst about a week ago that I've seen community sentiment since I think we started building. And yeah, we know that we have to work hard to earn it back. I hope you guys see that the team is really, really grinding in order to make sure that we get some stuff ready. And it's still not perfect, right? Like the task keeps changing, it keeps getting bugged. Seriously, like we know there's still a lot of work to go. Believe me, like we hear it, we see the comments. We're in Discord all the time. Like it's funny, some people I like pop in and I'm lurking all the time. I'll like just comment randomly when somebody's like, I bet Luke's lurking. And like, yeah, I am. But yeah, we think it's turning around a little bit with the recognition that we still have to do a lot of work and we have to be here and like updating often. So again, before we leave, high level game plan, just to reiterate one more time. The high level game plan for Pixels is first step, phase one. We need to make sure that you guys feel good about the current state of gameplay and the task board and everything going on there. We'll probably have to do this for another like 2 to 4 weeks. Second phase is monetization and focusing on sustainability. So basically, starting to introduce quality of life improvements that use the pixel token and new gameplay mechanics and systems that use the pixel token. The key focus of this phase will be focused on net ecosystem revenue. Basically, we want to hit a milestone of having more pixels spent inside of the game than we give out. We'll also start to do some interesting stuff around prediction or like individualized task board earnings, essentially, like getting like way more data driven on it. Third phase is scale, start to expand into new markets and also polish the game first too. So we'll basically work on the onboarding experience and then start pumping a lot more like a lot more resources into user acquisition and moving towards markets like the US and APAC and making a bigger dive into there. So that's the game plan. Nothing's changed for the last 6 months, and we're executing, I promise. And we're at like the best spot that we've ever been to get there. So a lot of work to do still. Um, we'll stay in touch on like all that progress. Continue to give us feedback. Wait, this was a good idea.
Oh, I
Task
want
board
I want
skins.
a pink one.
Yeah. Okay. Great idea. With that being said, yeah, we'll start to like do more. Well, we've been doing updates every day, but we'll start to do more frequent updates
More.
still. I'm
Okay,
so
cool.
tired. I need to sleep. It's
Yeah.
5 a.m.
All right. Well, good night, Luke, and good night to everyone in the Philippines watching. And we'll see you
Good night.
next week. We have there's like a small Moku thing running. I'd recommend going. I think you can win some VIP. And we have an energy party on Friday. So we'll see you guys there. All right. Bye, guys.